Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show. And today, Jim and we're live today. We're going to have a discussion about the 7 habits that help you build wealth. And we're going to cover these 7 individual kind of habits individually, but we're going to have it as a discussion. As I say, we are live. Please jump in with any questions as we go through. And if I have time, I will pick them up and we could possibly answer any of them as we go. So yeah, Jim, the 7 habits that build wealth. And initially we had said about the habits that you form for obviously building wealth and things as well. And we had looked at living your life by design. Now, what do we mean by lived life by design?
Let me talk to you about the 7 habits for building wealth, though.
Okay.
Jim Rohn, actually, if anybody knows Jim Rohn, he was a world-class speaker. And I think Jim's still around today, but there's loads and loads of content and video on Jim Rohn. Yeah. But he says success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated every day. See, there's no difference. Yeah. Both the same, isn't there? One's a few successes every day repeated, and one's a few errors every day repeated. So it's really down to it's an accumulative weight of our disciplines and our judgments that actually lead to us either fortune or failure. Jim Rohn's words, not mine. But I tell you what, he knows a thing or two about success and failure, because he is like the guru of that. He's like Yoda of success and failure. He goes way back. Jim Rohn was the person that Tony Robbins learned from. That was him. He was his mentor, Jim Rohn. So this is all about the 7 habits that actually can build wealth for you, and you have to make sure these habits are, as I said in Jim Rohn's words, you have to repeat the successful habits more or less all the time. This is about programming your mind, remember?
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was actually just on Diary of a CEO, and it was a specialist in I think it's interrogation techniques and all the rest of it, but also how to get people to talk and how to get people to submit. I'm not really sure exactly what it was again, but that was the thrust of it.
Yeah.
And what I noticed about it when he talked about it, he said, in order to, especially, hey, with the start of the year, a lot of people make New Year's resolutions, but you're never going to be able to keep that New Year's resolution or that, any resolution or any commitment you make unless you make a serious change in what your habits are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how you do things.
Well, your probably question out of that is, what do you mean by series of habits? Well, everything that you do is, in Jim Rohn's words, whether it's a success or a failure, has led to where you are. And you do that every single day. Now, think about the habits you do every single day in repetition. And think about all the surroundings and environment you're in actually do that every day. So a classic example is, more than likely, when you get up and look in the bathroom mirror, the next step is either you're going to shave, or, well, if you're a man, sometimes, or you're going to brush your teeth. You're going to do something you're religiously set up as a habit to do. It's going to be automatic. You're going to brush your teeth with your right hand.
Looking in the mirror.
You're going to do it with your right hand.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it with your left, because you're always conditioned to do it right. And then you come out of that cycle and you actually think, wait a minute, I've just done that, but I've not realised what I've done. How many people have actually driven to their work, got to their work and think, how did I get here again? I've done it.
Yeah.
I've driven through roundabouts, I've driven through traffic jams, and then I've got to my work and I've actually sat in the car park and gone, I can't remember a thing about what I saw on the way or how I got here.
Yeah.
Because that is a series of habits you've built up. Now, let's come back to what I talked about the habits that you're building and how to do that. If you want to change anything, this is key and fundamental. So listen to anybody that's listening and tuning in right now. If you want to change anything, you have to change the environment you were within that created that habit in the first place. Now, what do I mean by that? Classic example, if you're an alcoholic, you can't go to pubs anymore.
Yeah. that's what I was just going to say. If you've got a bad habit, then you need to remove yourself from the environment that's influencing that bad habit, and drinking's right up there. Yeah.
If you've got an addiction to gambling, you can't go into places where you're exposed to gambling anymore. If you want to change something, for example, if you want to change your habits in terms of running, you want to be more exercised, you want to be more healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, exercise doesn't necessarily correlate with health. It has a strong correlation, but it doesn't need to say if you're doing anaerobic or aerobic. It just depends on how healthy you're being and how healthy again. There's lots and lots of people that have been perceived healthy, but they've never lived past 50 or 55 or 60. Why is that?
I was just going to say, why is that then?
Because they're doing other things that actually they don't realize that they're doing every single day, which actually contributes to that error, which contributes to that failure in what they're doing.
Right.
They're maybe eating the wrong foods, but they think going out and exercising is actually making that right all the time. So you have to change the environment. So if you want to change something, you have to do things like, for example, if you're into a routine every single day, doing the same thing day in, day out every single day, you have to, and you want to change that routine, you have to do things like you have to move the furniture about in your house, because that routine is locked in to the same furniture. It's maybe the same surroundings. Maybe you're decorating. You know, maybe the decoration round about your room. Maybe so you'll have to paint and decorate the room. Probably, it's maybe locked into another thing. It's maybe it's all about you. It's the way the whole thing, everything that you do in your habit is conditioned by everything. Now, here's a classic example. When I was younger, I smoked. I smoked from about the age of 10 years old or 8 years old up until about 19 or 20 years old. And then I stopped. And it's like, and I tried way before then to stop, and it was impossible because I'd never changed my surroundings. So when I stopped smoking, what I did was I worked up to a point where I was conditioning my mind that I am going to stop smoking. I'm going to stop smoking. Here's the reasons why I'm going to stop smoking. So I've got the why, and I've stuck on that all the time, why I was going to stop smoking. But I actually stopped smoking the day I finished college. Now, why did I do that?
Is there a reason for that? Yeah.
All my habits have changed. I'm no longer going to college.
And having breaks and
I'm no longer taking a break. I'm no longer doing, all these different habits that I did before that I was associating with smoking. Therefore, it makes it a lot easier to break that cycle because your habits are no longer established anymore because you're doing a different routine. See the routine?
Yeah.
The constant thing all the time. Your classic example is a lot of people actually have a cigarette after a drink.
Yeah.
And they'll not have a cigarette any other way. So what do you have to do if you're wanting to stop smoking completely? You're going to have to avoid the situation where you put yourself in a position where you're going to have that drink. It mimics that process at the same time as the habit of smoking comes after it.
Yeah.
That's the key. If you get up at 6 o'clock because you train every single day, or you maybe don't want to train every single day, and you get up at 6 o'clock to train every single day, and you've decided you're not going to train anymore, the last thing you should be doing is getting up at 6 o'clock then. Because then you're automatically, you're automatic, and I know that's a negative way of doing it, but I'm pointing out the other way in a negative way how you can stop yourself training anymore. You just stop getting up at that time. Look what lockdown did to everybody when it threw everybody's habits out.
Yeah.
A lot of them stopped running. A lot of them stopped swimming. A lot of them stopped training. A lot of them stopped their healthy eating. A lot of people stopped all the different things, all the habits. A lot of people stopped playing instruments. A lot of people stopped playing chess. A lot of people stopped playing all these recreational things they did because of lockdown. And they never actually went back to them as a result. It threw them out completely. I stopped training at triathlon. I went down from a half Ironman level, and that's basically, 2 kilometers in a loch. That's 56 miles on a bike, and that's 13 miles at the end. I went from that, basically being able to do a sprint triathlon, that's because of lockdown. But that's not because of lockdown, because all my habits changed. It was in my routine of training every single day.
So how did you get back into your routines then? And how did you have to change your habits again and get back into
change habits? Yeah. Change habits, definitely. Change habits. And this is where we come back to habit 1, where you says live life by design. Now, Hal Elrod actually says you are where you are because of who you are.
Okay.
But where you go depends entirely on who you choose to be.
Right. I thought you were going to say who you surround yourself with, but it's who you choose.
Who you choose to be. Remember, it's about you. Live life by design. Design the life that you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then how do you go about designing the life that you want then? How do you do that? Do you know, I mean, it's easy enough for us to say, do you know, like who do you want to be and things and look at and talk about life as live life by design, but how do we do that then?
Well, Stephen Covey actually talks about it quite a lot in Habits. Like successful people, the 7 habits as highly successful people. I think it's. I think you've got the book.
Highly effective people.
Yeah, highly effective people. He's got loads and loads of books about it, but he actually says, start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
If you're going to build a big life, you've really got to need a plan, haven't you? You've got to know where you're going to understand where you're coming from. Unless you know where you're going. Matthew McConaughey, think about it. Matthew McConaughey talked about it in a lot of videos. And the fact that who do you look up to? Well, it's the person I'm going to be in 10 years' time. That's living life by design.
Yeah. Right. I always like that. I always like that approach and that mindset, because it's like, okay, well, I'm living my life with the aspiration to be the person that I'm going to be in 10 years. And I quite like that approach.
So to design let's look at that. Design. So Matthew McConaughey, where am I going to be in 10 years' time? That's the person I admire the most. But that's the person that actually, if I'm going to be there in 10 years' time, what I need to do now in order to get there in 10 years' time? Who do I need to be now to get that, to be that person living life by design? So to design your life with end in mind is to create a life worth actually living.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. It's being purposeful, even if it's purposefully having fun and scheduling vacations ahead of work. It probably is the key to actually what you want to a very high level. So first thing I did was like at the weekend is like I booked another holiday in Spain in March. Because it was nothing to do with that. It's the fact that if you can't have something to look forward to, why the hell are you doing it?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think as well, when we talk about the living the life by design things, and it's like obviously you need to change things and who you are and what you're doing in order to get to where you want to go. Do you think there's a lot of people that do things in their daily life that they know maybe they shouldn't be or isn't the right thing, but they do it anyway because they're stuck in that and they just kind of shut it off? And it's like they kind of got the blinkers on. I'll just keep doing what I've been doing anyway, even though I know I shouldn't be doing that, and it's taking me away from my ultimate goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And why do they continue to do it?
That's what I was just going to say. Like,
that's
why?
what you've got to ask. And this is you have to be, in order to live life by design, you've got to really have a self-awareness of yourself. You've got to understand yourself a lot more. You've got to know where you're coming from. I think that's the most important thing. Once you get that sorted out, then nothing will stop you. You just have to make sure you follow your plan and you keep that plan in mind. And that is actually understanding where you are and that living life by design, understanding as well that it'll not always go according to plan, because there will be things that will throw a spanner in the works. For example, you can't control what the government does.
Yeah.
If it's to create wealth, you can't control their taxation policy. You just have to live with it. You can't control a housing market. You can't control another country's tariffs that they'll put on goods and services that might make things dearer, or all these different things are outside of your control. And the only thing you can worry about is the things that you can control in that situation. That's probably key here. And remember, you don't really. This is before we move on to the next one. This is the key fundamental thing. You don't really have to hit rock bottom to make any change in your life at all. In fact, helping others is probably one of the most endearing and rewarding things that you'll ever do. And that is the living life by design is often the helping others, which will help you and yourself.
Yeah.
And it adds value to you, and it adds value to your life as well. And there's endless opportunities out there, and you just have to want to do that. It's these pivotal moments in your life where you kind of think, and everybody starts to focus on the start of the year, and that's when they start to think about the pivotal moments. But you should ideally, if you're going to do your New Year's resolutions, Do it before New Year.
We spoke about this just before Christmas, or in between. I can't remember when we done the show.
If you really want to give up something, then you're going to have to do it. Here's the other one as well. Here's a classic example. I have a friend who is now dead. Okay. Yeah. So why was his life so short? Because it was 55 years old, done. Yeah. Just out the blue. Massive stroke, next day, switch the machine off. And I really put it down to a lot to do with the fact that he was always stressed about things. He always got himself worked up about everything all the time. And it was nothing he could really do anything about, but he used to live life getting worked up about things, and he allowed it to get to him all the time. Now, you can either allow that to get to you, or you can allow it to pass you by. But I tell you what, you would lead a lot more healthy life if you were to allow that to let that go. It's the minute details that we all get caught up in. And that's what gets in the road of living life by design.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think there's a lot of people let all the small things become much bigger than what they should be in their life. And like you say, prolonged stress can really take its toll on your health.
Yeah. It's the other one as well, is people go, I can't stop eating. I can't stop eating while they're munching a bag of sweeties. Oh, it's just, I can't stop. Yeah, if you keep telling yourself you can't stop, guess what? You're not going to stop. You're not going to stop because you've created everything round about you to say that you can't stop. And the environment you're sitting within is probably conducive to that. A classic example is you go to the cinema. How is it that everybody goes to the cinema now and buys popcorn?
I know. Do you know I do that sometimes?
When I went to the cinema, I never used to do anything like that at all. So where's that come from?
It's just kind of social influence, I think.
So you don't need to hit rock bottom to do anything like that. You just need to make sure you're more self-aware of yourself, and you're more self-aware of how you tick, and you have to foresee one step ahead, I would say. Foresee what could happen if you take that step, and is it going to lead you down a path of negativity? That's all. Something that's going to be negative in your life, and rather than positive in your life. And that's what works you towards your goals, I would say.
Okay. So that was living life by design. So what was the next one?
Well, you tell me. You've got it written down.
Yeah, I've got them. I don't know whether you will lead with it or not. But so yeah, the next one is making business decisions based on solid fundamentals. And I imagine we've got quite a lot of good examples to go through on this because of investment decisions and things that we make on buy-to-let portfolios and things as well. That's going to kind of come into that because they are based on the fundamentals of the numbers in terms of the purchase price and the occupancy rate, or potential occupancy rate, and the interest rates and all the rest of it. All these factors, you make decisions on buying portfolios based on these fundamental things. So that's quite a good example, I think, for where we're heading with making business decisions on these solid fundamental.
Are you telling me or asking me?
Well, I'm asking you then. Well, I know you do, but I know you do, but that's yeah.
But that's exactly right. I actually put a post on some of the forums the other day, actually, about don't trust the experts. And if anybody read it, don't trust the experts. Look at the classic examples of things like right before October and the 2008 crash. Right before the 2008 crash, you had people like Forbes magazine, you had all these different places saying, you had Moody's and Standard & Poor's and all them saying mortgage-backed securities are all safe. There's nothing wrong with them. There's no toxic debt about them at all. And the economy is really healthy and the market's going to continue to boom. And then, a couple of months later, the whole economy had collapsed overnight. And yet you had all these investment houses. This is what I talk about, but don't trust the experts, and the fact that, you can maybe trust them in the outset, but go and do some research and actually make sure the numbers that, it is right. See the bullshit you're getting talked about in the economy just now. It's total garbage. The thing about 5 or 6 interest rate cuts this year, I can't see that happening. I can't see how in any context that's going to happen. If you've got a full employment economy, if you've got inflation still going above the target, and then if you've got as well, wage inflation as well, double normal inflation itself. And you've got core underlying inflation as well, the services and household costs and food and drink, all these things, they're way above the normal inflation rate still. So you're telling me there's going to be 5 or 6 interest rate cuts, and then they got down to 4, and then they got down to, I think they're maybe down to 3 now, and I'm like, could you be lucky to get 1 or 2? Yeah, everybody's playing up the market. Even the forecasters for the property market, for example, for this year are going, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be 10%. And what? Sorry, where? Where's that evidence? And it's just because they've read it off of someone else. Yeah, when somebody says it, you have to ask yourself, where is the evidence to suggest that? Where did you get that information from, and where is that information? How many people actually said that Donald Trump would never win the 2016 election?
A lot.
Yeah. And yet, even I thought that. And no, God, this guy's no chance. And yet he won. How many people thought he would never win this election?
I didn't.
I knew he was going to win. And it's not because I'm a supporter. It's because he has tenacity. He understands human psyche, and he understands. And when he stopped in that assassination attempt and took a second and said to his security, stay exactly where you are, because you heard him saying it, and then thought about what he can do next, you knew fine when he punched his hand in the air and says, I will never be silenced. You knew fine that he was going to get elected.
Yeah, because that's clearly demonstrating to the people. I mean, that's definitely going to resonate with people, especially Americans and things.
If you're going to make any business decisions or any decisions in your life, make it on solid foundations and fundamentals, right? As opposed to guesses about what might happen in the future. And the guesses are the things that you see in the media sometimes. Is it backed up with numbers? What is the theory behind that? The gurus that come along, all the rest of the fake gurus about, is it, I mean, somebody says, hey, Jim, I could say that about you. It's like, hey, I could back anything up I say with the numbers quite easily, because everything's based on information. It's not based on how I just feel about the moment.
Yeah.
It's all backed up.
I quite liked your Wizard of Oz reference the other day.
This is a classic one. This is why Warren Buffett talks about, I know to invest in Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola sell 1.6 billion cans of Coca-Cola a day, something ridiculous like that. 1.6 million, 1.6 billion, or whatever. But he says, I know fine if Coca-Cola increased the can of their drink by 1 pence, I know they will put 1.6 million pounds per hour on their income. Straight at the bottom line. I think Coca-Cola is a dead cert. That's what he said, a long-term dead cert, because they can only go up. And that's what I've always said. What have I said to you about Virgin Media? It's like, if you want another £1 million in your bottom line, you've got 2 million subscribers, you just add another 50 pence on every single subscription every month. And every month you've got another £1 million in your bottom line. Brilliant, eh?
Yeah.
So back it up and don't base your buying, this is a classic example when it comes to property, for example. Don't base your buying decisions on future appreciation. I never base any buying decisions for property, for renting, for investment on what the price is going to be later on. Every single decision,
that mistake,
every single decision for me is always about how much cash flow and income does it generate every single month, and can it weather a storm? In other words, if occupancy rate drops, if interest rates go up, if rental prices drop, if all these different, if overheads go up, and I'm stuck with the fact that rent controls are now in, and I can only increase by 1% plus inflation every year, and it goes up, maybe it goes up in the year by 10%, but by the time the inflation measure comes in, it's maybe back down to 2.5%. So I can only increase 3%, but interest, it's going up by 10% in the year. But the model is different for the way it works in terms of how they would do rent controls. So you have to make sure you can weather that sort of storm. So the advice is just don't do the same as everybody else. just because they think it works for them. Do what is right for you based on the knowledge, information, and facts that actually appear right before you. There's some decisions that it's good examples about core competence as well. It's about, for example, Buffett. Why does he not invest in Facebook? Why does he not invest in crypto? Because he doesn't know these sectors. He's not done it. He doesn't know his homework, and he doesn't have any solid foundations on which to base on.
Yeah, and that's not really his forte, and so he's like, he'll stick to what he knows, and that kind of brings us on nicely to the next point, which is stick to your knitting, and that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, let's just say though, but before we leave that, is remember, be your own expert and invest in what you know is your core competence. I think that's the key here. Is definitely, you've got to make sure you understand that first. Here's the key before we leave this subject. With little research, you can become an expert in anything, in real estate and micro markets and currency trading, whatever it is you want to be. But you have to make sure it's your core competence. And this is what you said about sticking to what you know. Stick to your knitting and stick to what you know and drill deep.
Mm-hmm. So when you say drill deep, like, do you mean like if you're good at something, or that's kind of like that as your area of expertise, like run with that as much as you can? Is that what you mean when you say run deep with that?
Okay. So here's a quote, because I've written down a few quotes with this, with Warren Buffett, for example. What an investor needs is the ability to correctly evaluate selected businesses. You don't have to be an expert on every company or even many. You only have to be able to evaluate companies within your circle of competence. Core competence, that's it.
Yeah.
The size of that circle is not very important. Knowing its boundaries, however, is vital. Why do you think I don't invest in student lets?
Yeah.
Why do you think I don't invest in serviced accommodation? Why do you think I don't invest and don't do flips? I have no idea about these things, and I've got no desire to know about them at all. Why would I want to know about them? I'm making a fortune in what I'm doing right
when
now.
you're successful in what you're already doing. Yeah.
Yeah, how much more do I need to make? I just keep doing the same thing all the time, and it keeps producing results. I'm literally an expert in my field.
Mm-hmm.
In what I do. Now, that's no blowing my own trumpet or anything like that. It's like I deliberately designed it to be almost like I hate to say it, guru in that field. If you were going to say anything like a Yoda, it's like that's all I was interested in, becoming that type of person in core residential investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we say. You've spent a lot of years honing in on that and perfecting it and getting it to the way that you do things, and you just keep doing that over and over. And do you think that you've become so successful at that because over the years you've not let things or other options, like you say, maybe doing a flip or maybe doing an HMO, or you've not let things like that take you away or off track for what you're doing with buy-to-let investment for private residential?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to build great wealth, then stick with something that you know and it generates revenue and stick with that. Great wealth has never been built by diversifying, by the way.
Okay. Which might be surprising to a lot of people that have probably been on courses and listened
And
to.
honestly, great wealth has never been built by diversifying in a million different things. You've maybe got conglomerates that diversify into complementary products.
Yeah.
For example, what does Virgin invest in? More or less, it's everything that's like travel, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
You've got the
communications.
Yeah.
Because it's planes, it's trains, it's hotels, it's
Cruise.
holidays, it's cruise ships. Everything around what they do is their core competence in the first place, which was their Virgin Atlantic brand. And the music, that was a totally different sphere, but that's by the wayside now. Telecommunications is Virgin Media.
Virgin Media, yeah.
And then they diversified into banking. But banking was a natural progression for them because it exposes their brand to a wider audience.
My mortgage is with Virgin,
which has now been sold.
Yeah, because they were and they amalgamated with Clydesdale PLC as well at some point.
Yeah. Real estate for me personally is the habit I've stuck with for 3-1, and I've stuck with real estate, and it's residential investment properties, and it's all properties of the same types, the same sort of price point. I never go way beyond. I still don't understand what appetite people have got when they buy stuff at 300 and 400,000 pound. It might appreciate longer, but you're kind of putting all of the eggs in one basket when you're doing it, and you're limiting yourself to affordability because you've got to charge a huge amount of rent to get that return on that investment.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably less likely to be able to weather a storm because the sensitivity of the high rent, and the fact that if the economy takes a turn, your rent's probably going to take a tumble rather than just a wee drop.
Yeah.
Because you've got it's like the bigger you big, the higher you build, the greater you're going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make sure you kind of put stop gaps in all the way through, a bit like, you know, the limitless win. If you watch that Limitless Win, you get to a point where you actually put stop gaps. You know, you've got 20,000 now. Are you going to risk it to get higher? But your fallback's definitely 20,000. You have to think about that. So there's always you always make sure you put fallback positions in behind you as a result. So if you do take a fall, you don't take a dramatic fall right to the bottom and wiped out overnight.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of property investors do at this point in time, because they think they've got to do all in and they've got to take huge risks in order to get where they're going.
As possible, yeah.
Playing a dangerous game, definitely. If you just target, for example, your return is 15% every single year as your return on investment, then you're probably talking about what? Your money will double every 4.8 years.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Imagine if it's 25%. Money doubles every 4 years. Yeah. And it's what you do with that money and put it back into that and build that as well. I know Paul has actually said about, you know, any thoughts on housing price adjustments in the year as a result of manipulated valuations. I've not got any thoughts on it at all, Paul. And the reason for that is because when it comes into investment strategies, it makes no difference to me about what prices of houses are going up or down or anything like that. It's just a pure numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a house price it's higher than Home Report I've paid for. If the numbers still work, it's a good investment. If it's lower than what I paid, the Home Report I've paid for, or what the valuation is, it makes no difference either. Really, the price has got nothing to do with anything unless you're leveraged up to the highest, and then the bank turns around and says, by the way, you were 75% loan to value. Your valuation is far too high now. Therefore, you're now 80 to 90% home loan to value. We want you to pay money towards that to bring that mortgage down. That's how you get caught out.
Yeah, I've seen a few people that happen to a few people.
I'm about 50% loan to value. I've always been that. I remember at one point in one of my companies, I was 20%. You know, I was 20% loan to value. So, and then that's when I thought, wait a minute, okay, this is a prime opportunity to take that capital and be able to reinvest it, because the market's perfect at this point in time. It's waiting for key points in time and understanding how that market works.
Yeah. Hopefully that helped, Paul. I think it's funny to see it, and people might think that's, but the purchase price is kind of irrelevant as long as all the other numbers work and your investment's still viable. So.
Yeah. Stress test, he says it. Just stress test it. Make sure you're covered for everything. And then you never need to worry about anything. You can sleep at night every single time. The economy is going to take a dip. Who cares? People have still got to stay in houses.
Yeah.
And if you're at a position where your rents that you're charging are exactly or maybe less or just about the same as what the local housing allowance is, in other words, for benefits, then if the person loses their job, they're going to get their rent paid anyway. That's what I love about the market I'm in. Because come hell or high water, the rents will always be paid unless the tenant chooses not to pay it. So whether it's through their own means or through the universal credit means, I'll always be able to get the money some way or another. If you're up at 1,600 quid and somebody loses their job and they can't afford to pay it, universal credit's not going to pay that much. Therefore, you're goosed. And then you've got to try and get them out, and then you've got to follow the first due tribunal. It could be a year down the road, they're not paying any rent, and then could you weather that storm? That's what you got to ask yourself. So that's why you have to make sure in the first instance that you follow all these habits. Live life by design, build it on solid foundations, and then stick to your knitting, stick to what you're really good at, your core competence.
Yeah, definitely. And then that brings us on to looking at earning more as you learn more as well. So earning more while learning more. And I think that you mentioned at the beginning, and it's picking up things from people a lot more successful than you, but making sure that what the people that you're listening to and what they're telling you is backed up by their own actual success.
Absolutely. So Jim Rohn says, learning is the beginning of wealth. The people that learn will earn more. Will learn more, will earn more. It's a strong correlation between the two of them. The more you learn in your particular field, the more valuable your skills become to someone else as a result of it. It's just the way the capitalist economy works, the way the system works. You're paid for your skills in most of these high power positions. Look at Nick Clegg, ex-Liberal Democrats leader with Meta. Did you know that? He was head of Meta?
No.
And it's like, really? Nick Clegg? How on earth is that? It's because of the skills and the contacts that Nick has as a result of where he's been before.
Right.
Because of what he's learned. See that? It's no need to do what he learned at school. It's no need to do what he learned at high school or college or university. It's his network has developed his net worth. It's who he knows and what doors he can open for Meta. He's literally getting paid millions.
Just for the sale, be making an absolute fortune.
Yeah, a head of Meta in one of their massive divisions, and I'm like, really? I would never have thought that. But that's what happens to these people because of their skills that they've achieved over the time. And this is what's really important. You also really want to core competence on, learn more and you'll earn more, but make sure it's in a field that you love. There's no point in learning something that you hate. It's like just to earn the money. God, for God's sake, there's loads of fields. Every single field, you can see somebody that's a top earner in that field, no matter what it is. There's going to be somebody that's a top earner, and look at that person that's a top earner, and start to learn what they've done. What type of person are they? How do they hold themselves? How do they communicate with other people?
Yeah.
How do they come across? How did they get to where they were? Go and ask them. Because some of them will go, I tell you what, I'll employ you. Because if you're that inquisitive, then come and work with me.
Yeah,
because I will employ you straight away. Because if this is an industry you want to be in, then you can come and work with me, and I'll teach you how to do it. I'll be your mentor at that time. Some of them have done that. Richard Branson had Freddie Laker from SkyTrain when he first had it. Freddie Laker was the first person to do cheap Atlantic flights, and his mentor at that time was Freddie Laker from SkyTrain, because SkyTrain had done a death, but it's basically because British Airways, had wiped them out by charging cheap fees. And so what happened was, when the Dirty Tricks campaign with Richard Branson and Virgin Atlantic happened for British Airways, he went straight to his mentor, Freddie Laker, and Freddie Laker went, "Get the bastards." He knew, fight right now, start it now, take them to court right now. Do not do what I did, which is sit on my hands and try and fight against them. He used the system. And he told him that's what he should do. These are the sort of things. And passion is definitely something you've got to bring to this. This is why I said, learn something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because I think with anything, if you've got a natural interest, or you've got a passion for something, or you do enjoy something, you'll pick it up a lot easier and learn a lot quicker. You'll absorb it a lot quicker because you want to.
See, a classic one I see in most people. There was somebody that came to me recently, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because you might know who this person is, but they came to me and talked about how they were learning all different things in guitar. but they were probably going to be one of the best guitarists in the world. But he's going to stick into his studies in order to make sure he's going to be okay. All right, okay. Well, he's either going to be the best guitarist in the world, or he's going to do whatever it is with his studies. That tells you everything about it. I'm going to be the best guitarist in the world, but I tell you what, I'll stick him with this in case it doesn't work out. Well, okay, you're either going to be the best guitarist in the world, or you're not going to be. Which one is it? Because you've decided in the beginning you're not going to be, with the very fact that you're having to stick into your studies in case it doesn't work out. You're just telling yourself straight away it'll probably not work out. Don't bother.
Put that out in your mind, yeah.
Yeah, don't bother. Learning is the choice that you make, and incidentally, so is earning.
Mm-hmm.
How many people work through Christmas and New Year? That'll probably be people that earn more in their field than other people earn in their field as well.
Yeah.
The ones that didn't do things like that. The ones that didn't focus on things like that. The one that did, and what I mean by that is the ones that did stuff out of that. I mean, technically I wasn't meant to be working, but I was still working anyway. I was doing other things. I was also learning loads and loads of content and information from other people at the same time. This was the opportunity for me to get ahead of everyone else. It could be in my field. I'm not competing against them, but it's another benchmark. It's like, I will do today what others will not to achieve tomorrow what others cannot. When you're ill in your bed and you won't get up to do anything, that is the time where I'm ill on my bed and I'll get up and do something, even if it's for half an hour or an hour, because I know you won't do it. And that will separate me and move me a wee bit further forward to the goal that you want, that I'm going to get to quicker.
Yeah, they're faster, yeah.
Now, it's my goal, but it's maybe your goal as well, but it's not necessarily the same thing. Like, for example, if you want £1 million and I want £1 million, it's not the fact that we're both competing for that £1 million. It's like, yeah, you can both have it because it's out there, but I'll probably more than likely get there quicker because I'm doing something that no one else will do. And when you go on holiday, some people go, I switch off completely when I go on holiday. And it's like, okay, fill your boots. Sorry, what is it you want? You want to be super wealthy. You want to have an extremely successful business. And well, that's probably not going to happen doing that.
Yeah. And it's a societal thing where people are conditioned, especially like the Christmas, New Year break. And it's like these 2 weeks, people just want to completely switch off and just, I mean, I didn't even put my out of office on over the holidays because I didn't see the point. I was still doing, I was still speaking to people and doing things. And so I still feel like I had a break.
Yeah, definitely. So if you keep learning, you will definitely keep earning.
Yeah.
And you have to learn all the time. I was reading every day as well. I was watching a podcast, listening to podcasts every day as well. And then I was going out running. And then I was going out, I'm back on the road again because I need to start doing that again. So these are all opportunities to learn. I was sitting doing tax returns, working at tax planning. I was asking several different scenarios of my accountant, who's meant to be on holiday as well, by the way. But he's brilliant. He answered me all the time. He gave me different scenarios about how if we made this amount of money, if we did this amount of money, if we did this and did that, how would it come out on the bottom line? And would it there if we earned money independently of the property investment, what limit could that be before it tips into higher rate payer? All these different things. What can we do to mitigate that? Oh, pension contributions. Okay, how much do we need to do to bring that down to a lower rate? To the threshold on the lower rate, to get the maximum out of that, to get the maximum return out of that as well. These are all different things that you can learn over that period of time. But most people will choose not to do that. That's not the world to come from. Have you ever noticed on the media now, that every single time somebody wins something, this is actually key. Watch out for this. Every time somebody wins something on a game show or they come into money, first thing everybody says is, what are you going to spend it on?
Yeah, that's true. I suppose they do.
Spend. No one ever says, what are you going to do with it? It's changed now. Everybody says, what are you going to spend it on? Immediately, the whole system's geared to asking you, as soon as you get money, what are you going to spend it on?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Because
I'm
I've
trying
started
to
to
think
notice
like
that.
the postcode lottery and things. You see the adverts for that, and that's what they say. Yeah.
This is what I bought. Okay, a car. Did you need a new car? No, but I had money, so I thought I'd buy it. So you bought a depreciating asset. Is that what you're telling me? An asset doesn't make you any more money or doesn't do any more than what your existing asset would have done for you. Because at that point in time, when you were about to buy the new car and your old car would have done just as fine and got you to A to B in the same manner possible, and you didn't need the new car, then that's when your old car becomes an asset rather than a liability. See how I've just changed that? Yeah. I've repurposed your old car now because you're no longer investing that money you've got in the new car because you realise the old car just has got as just much value in it to get you from A to B or where you're wanting to go. It can add no significant more value to it. So potentially that old car has now become an asset rather than a liability. It's a liability a wee bit, but it is more of an asset than a liability now because you've not bought the new car. And a lot of people don't realise that. What seminars does anybody attend? These are other things as well about learning.
That's the networking thing. Like your net worth is your network. Yeah.
What deals they're analysing, what books they're reading to. It doesn't matter what you do, just budget some time and dedicate it to learning about wealth. That's probably the key. There is a huge amount of magic in learning. That's key. So make it a priority in your life. Learn more about a subject that will be key and fundamental to your wealth creation over the medium to long term.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, and it's about habits and things as well. Like I think with the reading thing, I mean, I was never a big reader, and you've always obviously been a big advocate of learning by reading books and things. So, and I do it, but I just do it a couple of pages at a time because I can't sit and read for long periods of time, and I didn't have a lot of time.
Whoa, you've just told yourself you can't.
Yeah.
I can't sit and read for long periods of time. There's why you can't sit and read for long periods of time. Yeah. And it's probably the environment you put yourself in to do the reading in the first place. And the fact it's the same environment every single time.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And then that's about changing my life.
The distractions. Because you're used to doing other things in that same environment, possibly. And therefore, your mind's more importantly on something else. Wait a minute, we should be doing something else at this point in time. Not reading.
Yeah.
Maybe need to create a different environment for reading then. I know the environment for that, but I'll not tell it. I'm not talking about it yet.
I know what you're going to say, but
it is true though. It's a totally different environment, isn't it?
Yeah. And that takes us back to where we started the life by design thing. You know, it's like changing these things and changing your environment so you could incorporate these new habits or build on your habits.
So habit number 5.
Yeah, that's about having big goals and accountability for achieving these goals. Accountability is a big thing as well, and I think a lot of people do struggle with accountability and kind of holding themselves accountable. So that's quite an interesting topic. And big goals and having big aspirations and goals, I think even bigger than what you even really need to achieve is probably important so that you could sometimes...
Jack Canfield. So this is what Jack Canfield says about this. Jack Canfield's a great author, a great speaker, a mastermind when it comes to things like this, about goal setting, accountability, all the rest of it. He actually, one of the books I remember, Chicken Soup for the Soul. He's got the chicken soup.
I was going to say I've never heard of Jack, but I heard of that.
But he's also got another one which I've read as well, which I can't think off the top of my head. I'm looking at the library, seeing what's there. No, I can't see it just now. But Jack Canfield's a really good one. He says, sometimes our biggest life goals seem so overwhelming. We rarely see them as a series of small, achievable tasks. But in reality, breaking down a large goal into smaller tasks and accomplishing them one at a time is exactly how any big goal gets achieved. Do you notice the progression when you look at some companies, how they've progressed from their minutiae about when they first started to where they are now?
Okay, well, what's an example of that then?
Virgin.
Yeah, okay.
Planes, that was it. So how on earth did they get to banking and trains
and media
and hotels and cruise ships.
Yeah.
And they just add on over a period of time. Right, we've got that right. We've got this done. We've got systems in place. Okay, what's something that's complementary, which we'd add to the brand? Because this is all about travel and entertainment for people. So what fits in with our thinking in travel and entertainment? That's it. These are all small things. Look at Sony. When Sony first started out, this is where Sony first started out. Sony, the Sony Corporation in Japan, first started out, and their business was rice cookers.
I think I've heard this story.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. And you would never think that.
Look at the size of Sony now.
Yeah.
So they started off in the beginning as a small acorn, and grew in a huge oak tree, and then grew in a huge forest.
Yeah.
Basically, that's how they did it. So it's all these wee things. If you chunk down big goals and be accountable for them, your life will change. But you've got to, the chunking down is to bring them into small bite-sized portions. I never used to understand why people said this to me. How do you eat an elephant? And I'm like, one bite at a time. And folk would go, and I would go, what the hell are you talking about? But now understand in context what that means is the big goal is the elephant. And how do you achieve that big goal? It's by eating small goals.
A little bit at a time.
Achieving the small goals all the way through to make the big goal. That's the difference. So if you chunk down on big goals and be accountable for them, it will change your life. This is why I talk to you about, small improvements every single year, about what we do, how we do it, all these different things. It's just small improvements. Create chunk down accountability and break big projects into and big goals, for example, into bite-sized pieces, and help and support with, remember, strong accountability to make it stick. Throw in a healthy dose of major celebration for hitting each step. This is one thing I always forgot, to actually celebrate actually achieving something. And my best advice going back now and looking back on it was actually kind of celebrate it to a degree, what you've achieved.
A bit of recognition for what you've done. Basically.
That doesn't mean to say if you've hit your monthly target to book a big holiday to Necker Island. It's like, it's got to be proportionate. For example, well, you've never had a weekend to yourself because you've always worked. You've never had a night out to the theatre to see The Lion King or something like that. Yeah. You've never had that in ages. Maybe make that your goal. If I achieve my goal, we will do this. These are the sort of small things that you can do for yourself to encourage you, almost to program yourself to the reward, the dopamine receptor. Like, if you do that, you'll get this reward. That's always. I'm always a person who never ever rewarded myself over the years, and fair enough. I always used to think to myself, once I got there, well, that's the reward for me anyway. I feel good about myself anyway. I don't need anybody else to see what I'm getting or encourage and look at me, look what I've got. That was never me, and it never still is me. So I just used to go, well, my reward is probably I'll go and buy another house. So my reward of achieving that was to buy another house. So rather than buy a car, I would buy another house. That's just the way my mind worked, because I kind of thought, I know where my ultimate goal is anyway. So I always had my eyes on the prize, and I knew fine. The quicker I got to that level of income, the quicker I'd be able to get to that ultimate goal. So I saw the reward as a bit of a hurdle, even though I thought I could have that. But then I thought when I got to it, it's like, no, I don't need it. I don't need it really. So this thing about, giving yourself rewards worked for a lot of people, but it kind of never worked for me.
Yeah.
The reward in it for me was probably the satisfaction that I did it.
Yeah, and build, and just keep on building your your portfolio and things as you go was reward enough for you because you knew in the bigger picture at the end.
Accountability probably is important
as
as well, though. Remember, accountability is important, so you've got to put some sort of numbers on you. A classic example is like, you know, how many landlords we're signing up every week, how many move-ins we're doing every week, all these different things. The turnaround. So, you know, turnaround to get a property occupied, all these different things. So you're benchmarking it, but you're giving yourself some accountability. But you also have yourself accountable. But then you also have to take stock of when you don't hit that, you then have to revise that and think, well, why is that happening?
Yeah.
Was that the fact that I couldn't get off my backside and do it? Couldn't be bothered.
I was just going to say, yeah, that the accountability thing. I think sometimes it's for a lot of people, it's maybe a wee bit. It's one that maybe is a wee bit hard to swallow, or they kind of shy away from it because you are benchmarking. If you're putting numbers against your own accountability and your own performance, do you know if they don't go the right way? A lot of people don't want to hear that.
You see, a classic in gamblers, they always imply that they're up. They always imply that they've won. They always tell you about their wins, but none of them ever tell you about their losses. And I'll guarantee you, and there's no accountability there, by the way. I guarantee you that the losses are more than the wins in the majority of cases. That's the typical example of people that aren't accountable because they love to think that they've won, but they're not remotely interested in knowing how much they've lost because they know it's a lot more. So they're not interested. So they don't become accountable for themselves at all.
Yeah, and they just turn a blind eye to it, really, and then it's not giving them the real picture of where they actually are.
Yeah, I've seen it loads of times. It's the people that start out and whatever endeavour they do, but you can tell straight away that they're going to be successful or not by how accountable they make themselves.
Yeah, having your big goals, but obviously definitely being accountable for them. And for what you do to achieve your goals is a big part of it. Now, the next one we were going to talk about was living within your means, and you kind of touched on it a wee bit there, but I didn't want to jump forward too much. But yeah, living within your means and then investing wisely as well. And as you were talking about your rewards, Jim, and then reinvesting as your reward, because you for a long time did live quite, I'm not going to say frugally, but very within your means, and then reinvest wisely.
We worked it out where we could live on £1,000 a month. With everything we had at that time when we first started out.
And then just ploughed the rest into your business.
And I think I was when I started, I was probably earning 25,000 a year, 30,000 a year. So we were living on £12,000 a year. So you could see how I could invest so much back into property investment and build wealth. So that's what I did. That's how I did it. And this is actually quite good because Dave Ramsey, most people know Dave Ramsey, you know, talks about wealth and all the rest of it and how to get out of debt and everything.
Yeah.
And he's probably quite right in what he says. He actually says financial peace isn't the acquisition of stuff. It's learning to live on less than you make. So you can give money back and have money to invest. You can't win until you do this. You'll never win at anything unless you live within your means.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when you say about like the acquisitions of stuff, that means buying cars and spending loads of money on tangible things that aren't required.
It's these.
Yeah.
Cards. All these. By the way, very little of them are credit cards. They're only credit cards I make money on and I get points for. But most are debit cards. Because I work on cash and I mean, you know, debit cards I'm talking about, that is cash, that's straight to your bank. So you work within a cash means. So you're never getting to the point where you always notice, you notice, and I had a habit of this when I was younger. You got a credit card and then all of a sudden the credit card amassed the amount of money that it took for your salary. So by the time you got to the end of the month to get your salary paid, your credit card was now almost the same as your salary. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm now a month behind in my salary.
And then you're living on your credit card.
Yeah. And then you're constantly living on your credit card. And then if you keep doing that, then what happens is another month gets added on that as well. over a period of time. So you've now got 2 months worth of money on your credit card on your normal salary. You're living way beyond your means at that point in time.
Yeah.
Financial peace, again, as I said, is not the acquisition of everything. It's actually knowing that you're living within your means and you don't need to worry anymore about money.
Yeah. Yeah, the financial peace thing has to be right up there, and an important thing for most people. See, when we talk about living within your means, and you obviously gave the example there about back when you used to live on X amount and invest the rest in things. Did you find that really difficult to do that, or
Got a habit
to start with, or did you incorporate it as just like let's make this?
I actually in the beginning it was quite challenging because I had amassed amount of 2-car payments, a mortgage, and this was when we first started out because that's the type of things you were told to do. So then what I did was I started to consolidate the debt. So I started to take the 2 payments and actually roll it up into 1 payment, but spread it over a longer period of time. Now, you pay more in the long run, but the reality was I knew I was going to earn more in the long run, and this was a short-term process to get me out of that situation so I can invest and make more money than what the debt's costing me. Because I knew what to do.
Yeah.
I understood the dynamics of it. This is like a classic example of your mortgage is like £1,000 a month, but you get the opportunity to spread it over a longer term and actually bring it down to £750 a month. And you can take the £250 and make more money on the £250 you're keeping every month than you're actually paying on the mortgage. By doing that, then you would do that.
Yeah.
That's why I've got 131 or 130 grand mortgage.
But then a lot of people might have the mindset like, oh, I don't want to do that because I want my mortgage paid off quicker, sooner rather than later. So that's not the right way to think about it.
Yeah, 130 grand cost me 500 quid a month. Okay, so for 130 grand, if I divide that by I'll say 0.3 because it's 70% loan to value, no 25% loan to value. I can buy property worth about £400,000. Now, 75,000 for each property will get me just about 5 properties, 6 at a push. But 5 at 75,000. At 75,000, I can earn a rent of how much? 75,000, about 500 quid each.
Yeah, 550.
Yeah, so 5 times 500 times 12. That's total rents of £30,000 a year coming in.
Yeah, cool.
On a mortgage that I'm paying 500 quid a month for. So divide that by 12. So that's 2,500 in rents as opposed to £500 in mortgage. Now, I've got to service the debt. Your debt to equity your debt ratio should be about 50%. So take off that. So times 0.5, that's 50% of that's to interest payments. So you're 1,250 a month. It's still more than 500.
Yep.
30% overheads. So I'll multiply it by 0.7 to tell me what I've got left. I've still got 875. So I've now got 875 left after the 30% overheads. That's a letting agent and stuff like that to do it. Okay, and a bit of repairs now and again. So 875 versus 500. So I'm still 375 up on what that is. Okay, but what I've got as well is I've got £400,000 worth of property. Now, property on average goes up about 4% every year. Now, that's assuming 25 years, remember, at 4% to double. That's what that is. That's 25 year at 4% to double. So if that goes up 4% every year on that 400,000, I am making £16,000.
On the
divide that by 12 every month, that's 1,300. So technically, in the appreciation of the capital over the longer, medium or long term, I'm making 1,250, and out of my difference between the mortgage and the rent, net, the tax, for example, I'm making 250. So I'm up £1,500 every month. Sorry, every month I'm up 1,500 quid, and that's without the mortgage now. That's the mortgage paid for. So why would I pay off my mortgage? Especially if it's interest only.
When you put the numbers together like that, it makes sense that you wouldn't then pay your mortgage down. But
before we leave this, there's a really good story I've got here. Actually, Ronald Reid of Vermont was a janitor, and when Ronald Reid passed away at 92 years old, he had left $8 million.
A janitor.
Yeah, simply by spending less than he earned and investing the rest. It's mental, eh? But
Yeah.
look at it this way. If you look at it this way, if you're a smoker, for example, and say you smoked 3 packets a day, now they're 15 quid a pop, aren't they?
Yeah, something like that.
I did the research the other day. So 15 times 3 times 365 is 16,000 a year times 46. That's £750,000 over 46 years. Yeah. Now imagine if you'd invested that, you'd probably be sitting about 2 million now.
Yeah.
And that's stopping smoking. See how the bite-sized chunks?
That's
The wee bite-sized
been
ones.
good like that, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope a lot of people that are watching, if they smoke.
If you're a smoker, you could stop.
Yeah.
Even if you do 1 packet a day, if you do 1 packet a day times 365, that's 5,500 a year. And times 40, if you've started young, this could apply to vaping as well, by the way, £200,000 over 40 years, just with smoking 1 packet of cigarettes a day. Now, if you compounded that and actually put that in an investment fund, you'd probably get that up to about near enough £500,000 to £600,000 over 40 years, just because you didn't smoke.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
when you put figures like that together, it's the kind of eye opener when.
My quick advice before we go into 7. For the next 90 days, practice living like you're wealthy.
Okay.
Create a budget, develop a small investment strategy, start small, save a percentage of your money during that time, and research a few different ways you can invest it. After 90 days, look at your savings and weigh up your options. Do you have enough to invest in some stocks and buy to let? Increase your contributions to your pension? Or will it keep you inspired to actually save for a bigger investment, starting your own business, and eventually getting a property? That's the sort of things you've got to think about. It's these small acorns grow huge oak trees. It's a classic example, isn't it?
Yeah, the 90-day thing's quite a good thing for people to try. So it'd be interesting if people do that and come back to us.
Let's start on. They'll not do it. Honestly, I'll challenge you. If you're tuning into this and you're listening right now, do it.
Do the 90 days.
Prove me wrong, but I've got a funny feeling that you're not going to do it. That's why there's a 95% group, and that's why there's a 5% group.
Yeah.
And the 95% group will always work for the 5. They'll always work to live every single time, or live to work. That's it. Even though they think they live for their own self, they live to work. They have no other choice. This is the coming back to don't be delusional. You work to live. You have no other choice. You have to work to earn money. Wouldn't it be great to have another choice?
It would, yeah.
Habit 7. This is the one I have to work on.
We're gonna wrap up today with number 7, and it's don't sweat the small stuff. Now, you see it time and time again. I do it myself, and Jim, you just obviously admitted there that something you do is really getting caught up in the minute details of stuff and really letting it have an effect on you. I think a lot of people do that, and it holds people back so much.
Can I give you a good example of this?
Yeah.
I'm getting nailed for parking in a car park for more than 2 hours without actually knowing, for 60 quid in a fine.
Yep.
I've spent loads of hours back and forward with this company saying that, look, I had no idea these signs were up. It was raining that day. It was atrocious. If I knew I had to pay another 2 quid to go beyond 2 hours to 4 hours, I would have paid the 2 quid.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. No, we're not doing anything about it. And I've gone to the nth degree, to the point that actually the papers are writing something about it now. And I looked up their accounts. They made 8.6 million last year doing this. Out of saying it, they're just doing it to help people manage their parking requirements for these places. The health service, that's the same company that does it. Or the hospitals and the Saltaire Centre, the car park and everything. Now, I've never been there for 10 years, so I never knew this was in place now. But they're not letting it go. And I'm not letting it go. How valuable do you think my time is? Do you think it's worth more than 60 quid?
A lot more than 60 quid, isn't it? But you're obviously...
I should have just let that go and paid it.
But the principle to you, obviously, is that you're trying to prove the point. But then I bet you've sat back and thought, what am I doing?
Do you know why I'm doing it? because somebody else is going to get shafted for it. It's not going to be in a position to do anything about it at all. So I thought, I'm going to take a stand for everyone else, because I'm that type of person. Just what I do. Even if it costs me time, even if it costs me money, I am not going to let this company get away with it. If you read their accounts, it's a completely different thing. They say in their accounts, in the review summary, about who they are and what they do and why they're there, as opposed to what they're doing right now.
Right. Okay.
Complete disparity between the two of them. There's no correlation between how they're treating me and how they're doing that. And plus the fact they sent me on Christmas Eve.
Oh, really?
Emailed me on Christmas Eve. So I could do nothing about it for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. And
that's
the thing
what
is,
I find appalling and disgusting about what they're doing.
It is. And like you say, it could happen to someone else. And, you know, £60 could be, you know, whether it lands at a certain time of the month, it could leave them really short, and they might think, I have to pay this, but I'm going to have to do without.
It could leave them deeply concerned, anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies. We've all seen it, we've all heard about it, and they think they're going to get away with this, and I'm going to make them pay for it. That's all. I'm no caring. I'm just going to make them pay for it, and then I'll pay their 60 quid. I'll take it out of them in a big chunk, and reputation, and also in the place I was visiting, by the way, because then it'll affect them as well, and I'm no bothered, because it's like they are complicit because they allow it to happen.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that.
So see how letting go of the small stuff will actually set you free, because then I wouldn't need to bother about it. I should just pay the 60 quid and go, okay. It's the biggest obstacle of wealth is actually fear. People are afraid to think big, but if you think small, you'll only achieve small things. T. Harv Eker. Most people have heard about T. Harv Eker. He's been going around for a lot of years. Same sort of thing as Tony Robbins. But that's it. The biggest obstacle to wealth is fear. People are afraid to think big in case they don't achieve it, and then they feel a failure as a result of it. But you'll never achieve anything unless you think big. Imagine if you think big, but get halfway between where you are now and thinking big. It's certainly a lot better than where you are now, isn't it? So why do you not? For the fear that they won't achieve it.
Yeah, fear is a big factor that holds people back, and it's being able to push yourself forward and overcome that, and not letting the small stuff hold you back. People spend a lot of time thinking about the small stuff and like you say, sweating the small stuff, but it's weighing up whether something that you're going to spend, I mean, is that really going to be worth your while spending any time dealing with something or moving on? Like you said, the 60 quid to you or your time, but obviously it's a principal thing that's fallen in front of you with that one.
You can't manage small if you want to grow big. Look at me. When I realised I got to the point where I couldn't manage my rentals anymore because it's like that big, and it's like it's taking up all my time, how was I going to be able to spend time and being an estate agent and running an estate agency and helping everybody else and training them up?
Well, you wouldn't.
Think about the amount of money it's cost me over the years, Richard, and self-management. And the fact that I've self-managed, I've maybe saved that money, but it's cost me a hell of a lot more money elsewhere because that's had to be neglected in order to concentrate on that, because it revolved around me. And when I understood that, that was at the point where I thought, I shouldn't be managing my own rentals.
Yeah, and getting involved in the day-to-day.
And so hence the reason why you guys are there, to manage that for me and to do that for me. And it's the same with the estate agency business. I can't grow into other areas. We can't grow a bigger business if I continue to go about out and being an estate agent. It's great fun, and I can't deny I make a lot of money out of it. But I can't do all the time, because then it's based on my ability to perform. I've just got another job.
And then you need to move or like working on the business instead of in the business.
It also is a lot, and that's a bit cliched, that, and you're absolutely right though. It's working on it rather than in it. But you are technically in it. You just don't. You're not at the minutiae at the front line. You're not at the front line anymore. You're not dealing with the phones. You're not going out to see people. You're not having to follow them up and all the rest of it. That's just you'll never ever grow a big business if you're that type of person. Hence the reason why a lot of small businesses always stay small, because they don't take that leap of faith and actually get other people in to help them. They're just not geared up like that. They're just not wired up like that. And also for sanity, I know people that run small businesses now that just they can't take it. I used to be like that years ago. The pressure is unbelievable. When I was building a buy-to-let and I was working full-time as a financial controller in manufacturing, and literally I was working all hours God sends, plus the fact I was building a buy-to-let portfolio on my own and self-managing as well at the same time. And I was doing a lot of the contractors things myself.
Like maintenance.
Yeah, the maintenance and stuff like that myself. And having to do all that, the cleaning and putting carpets down and decorating and carpeting and hanging wallpaper.
Well, you're not totally burnt out doing that.
Well, obviously I was, and I talked about that in my I think episodes 95 to 100 of the Wealth Creation.
We've done the 7 episode mini-series.
About how it almost it did bring me to my knees. So for your sanity in life, you have to get out of that mindset. But what I mean is, that doesn't mean to say it's like, oh well, I'm going to take all the weekends off. I'm never going to work at night and all the rest of it. It's like, unless you've got somebody to replace what you're doing or do what you're doing in that context, then you're never going to make it. You're never going to build wealth. You're never going to make it bigger if it relies on you to do that and you stop doing it and no one else is doing it. Hence the reason why we've got 4 estate agents now, including yourself. Whereas before, we'd easily get away with 2.
Yeah.
But that 2 can't be me. I can't be one of them for that very reason, because I've done it for coming up for 20 years. It's like I could still continue doing it. I love doing it, but it's just no. I mean, how much more? It has to survive without me. If I drop down dead in the morning, then we're all right. Whereas 3 or 4 years ago, if I dropped down dead, we're goosed.
Yeah, and that's why you see other small businesses, people are so over the head and under pressure because everything revolves around 1 or 2 people.
Look at the amount of solicitors that disappear because they've got to a ripe old age. They've never bought a succession. They've never thought about succession plans, about who's going to run the business once they're gone. And when it comes to it, they're like, oh, there's no one.
It's just shut up shop. Yeah.
Yeah, shut up shop. Look at the amount of letting agents that do that. Look at the amount of estate agents that do that. It's like they just shut up shop because they've no thought about anybody else. They know about who's going to succeed them.
Yeah.
Who's going to be in place to take over. What's going to happen when they go away? What's happened when if anything happens on their ability to perform? Who steps in? No one. So that's why it's important to make sure that you've got to make sure. But you let go of the small stuff, and that is the small stuff and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Good. So yeah, obviously the 7 habits we've covered today, Jim, that was really good, and you've given us a lot of examples and insights and things. But the living life by design, making business decisions based on the solid fundamentals of things, sticking to your knitting and what you know, earn more as you learn more, and having big goals and accountability to go with them, and living within your means and investing wisely. And we just rounded up there with not sweating the small stuff.
I think if anybody sticks to these 7 fundamentals, they will be extremely wealthy in the next 5 to 10 years. I think they'll be wealthier even at the end of this year and the year after and the year after. Their wealth will continue to go up as a result of that if they stick to these seven key principles.
Yeah,
it's worked for me.
Yeah, definitely good. And then I think it's a good opportunity. Anybody that's watching, if you wanted to maybe try the 90-day challenge thing with your own kind of mini investment adventure and see, and you could let us know how we get on, or if you've got any questions about what we've spoken about today, feel free to contact me. My contact details are in here on the post. And we'll be back next week for the Wealth Creation Show, Monday 12:30 as usual.
Perfect. Okay.
Jim, thanks for that. We'll leave it there. Thanks everybody.
Bye-bye for now.